You're watching Netrush Report, your home for the biggest tennis stories, heated debates, and emotional moments that shake up the sport we love. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update from the world of tennis. The latest drama began when Novak Djokovic appeared at the Joy Forum in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. During his talk, Djokovic passionately discussed the mission of the Ptpa, the organization he co-founded with Canadian player Novak Djokovic's back in 2019. According to Djokovic, the Ptpa exists to fight injustice and to protect players' rights across both the ATP and WTA tours. He described the association as a platform to give tennis players more power and control over their own destinies, especially in a sport where decisions are often made by tournament directors, sponsors, and governing bodies with little input from the athletes themselves. But while Djokovic's vision may sound noble, Andy Roddick doesn't buy it. Speaking on his Served podcast, the former U.S. Open champion didn't hold back. He said, "You can't start a union and say we represent you if the players didn't elect you. That's not how representation works." Roddick's words struck a nerve, not just because they challenged Djokovic's leadership, but because they questioned the very legitimacy of the Ptpa's existence. To understand this feud, you have to go back to 2019. Djokovic, frustrated with how the ATP handled player interests, especially prize money distribution, ranking system inconsistencies, and mandatory participation requirements, decided to take matters into his own hands. Together with Novak Djokovic, he founded the Professional Tennis Players Association, or Ptpa, claiming it would serve as an independent voice for players. Unlike the ATP Player Council, which operates under the ATP itself, the Ptpa was designed to be completely separate, a players-only body that could challenge the system directly. At first, the idea seemed revolutionary. Many players, especially lower-ranked ones, agreed that tennis was long overdue for reform. Prize money discrepancies were massive. The Grand Slams and big tournaments were profiting more than ever, while players outside the top 100 often struggled just to cover travel costs. Djokovic framed the Ptpa as a movement, one to create fairness, equality, and transparency. But over time, cracks began to show. Andy Roddick's criticism cuts through the heart of the problem. For him, the issue isn't about Djokovic's intentions, it's about execution. Roddick said, "You can't just start a union, call it a players' union, and say you're representing everyone when half the players didn't even agree to it. Representation requires consent, not assumption." And he's not wrong. When the Ptpa was first announced during the 2020 U.S. Open, the tennis world was split. Djokovic and Pospisil were photographed with a group of players, almost all male, standing together with the message, "Players United." But soon, criticism poured in. Some players, like Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer, publicly opposed the move, arguing that breaking away from the ATP would divide the sport. WTA players weren't included in the original discussions either, which sparked accusations that the Ptpa wasn't truly inclusive. Djokovic later tried to fix that by including women, but the damage was done. The organization's launch felt rushed, incomplete, and controversial. Roddick's comments now highlight the same tension. How can an organization claim to represent all players when it wasn't democratically formed in the first place? Things took a more dramatic turn earlier this year when the Ptpa announced a lawsuit against tennis's governing bodies, including the ATP, WTA, ITF, and Grand Slam tournaments. The lawsuit accused them of functioning collectively like a cartel, restricting players' freedom, manipulating rankings, and controlling participation rules in a way that limits independent growth. It also took aim at the ranking system, claiming it forces players into mandatory events due to sponsor obligations, and at the lack of transparency in decision-making processes. For Djokovic, this was another step toward fighting what he's called institutional injustice in tennis. He believes that players should have a greater share of the revenue they generate and more say in how the sport operates. But for Andy Roddick, the lawsuit was a step too far. Speaking candidly on Served, Roddick said the lawsuit felt poorly structured and lacking an understanding of how the tennis ecosystem actually works. He remarked, "If you're going to sue every major governing body in tennis, you better have a unified front. Right now, it doesn't seem like the players are even on the same page." Roddick's critique is that the Ptpa, despite its good intentions, has failed to deliver tangible results. He argued that the association has become more of a symbolic movement than a functioning player union. He added, "If you really want to change things, you need governance, you need elections, you need a seat at the table, not just press releases and hashtags." His words resonate deeply with many observers who have noticed that, in the 5 years since its formation, the Ptpa hasn't achieved a major reform in tennis. Yes, it has raised awareness. Yes, it has supported individual players in specific cases. But has it changed the system? Not really. Djokovic, of course, sees things differently. At the Joy Forum in Riyadh, he acknowledged that not everyone supports the Ptpa's approach, but maintained that progress takes time. He said, "We are fighting for fairness and transparency. Not everyone agrees with our methods, but the system will not change overnight. It takes persistence." Interestingly, Djokovic also admitted that he personally doesn't agree with every aspect of the lawsuit, a rare sign of division even within the Ptpa's own leadership. He clarified that while he believes in holding governing bodies accountable, he also respects the complexity of tennis's structure. It's a global sport with overlapping interests, and any change will inevitably face resistance. Still, Djokovic's conviction hasn't wavered. He insists that the Ptpa is on the right side of history, and that in time, people will recognize the importance of giving players a unified voice. What makes this debate so fascinating is the contrast in worldviews between Roddick and Djokovic. Djokovic is the idealist, a fighter who's never shied away from challenging authority. Whether it's pushing back against ATP policies or questioning Grand Slam traditions, he's always been vocal about fairness. Roddick, on the other hand, is the realist, the pragmatist who's seen how organizations actually function. He understands that representation isn't just about passion, it's about structure, negotiation, and trust. Their clash isn't just personal, it's philosophical. Djokovic believes change comes from disruption. Roddick believes change comes from consensus. And right now, tennis seems to be stuck between those two visions. You might wonder, why does this debate even matter? Because what Djokovic and Roddick are arguing about could shape the future of professional tennis. If the Ptpa succeeds, players could finally have an independent body capable of negotiating their collective rights, something that could redefine how the sport operates financially and structurally. But if it fails, as Roddick suggests, it might leave behind a legacy of division, confusion, and mistrust among players. The ATP and WTA could become even more powerful, while players continue to feel sidelined in key decisions. This isn't just about Djokovic's ego or Roddick's criticism. It's about whether tennis will ever have a true, functioning players' union, something other major sports like basketball and football have had for decades. Roddick's comments have sparked a flurry of reactions online. Some fans are praising him for saying what others won't, that Djokovic's leadership style can sometimes feel more authoritarian than democratic. Others argue that Roddick is being too harsh, that at least Djokovic is doing something while others just talk. A few players have subtly sided with Roddick, agreeing that the Ptpa's messaging often lacks clarity. Meanwhile, Djokovic loyalists, especially from Serbia and Eastern Europe, continue to defend him as a visionary who's misunderstood by the establishment. Social media debates have reignited the old divide between Big Three fan bases, with Federer and Nadal fans using Roddick's comments to once again criticize Djokovic's off-court behavior. But make no mistake, this story isn't going away. The lawsuit is ongoing, and the tennis world is watching closely to see if the Ptpa can actually win anything meaningful in court. The next few months could be crucial for both Djokovic and the Ptpa. If the lawsuit gains traction, it could expose the financial and structural inequalities within tennis in a way the public has never seen before. But if it fails, or if the courts dismiss it, it could damage Djokovic's credibility as a reformer. Meanwhile, Roddick's words have put pressure on the Ptpa to prove that it truly represents players, not just a select few. Some are already calling for official elections or public transparency reports to show who exactly supports the organization and how it operates internally. Djokovic's team insists those steps are coming, but tennis history suggests that building unity in such a fragmented sport is easier said than done. So here's the question for you. Is Andy Roddick right to call out Novak Djokovic and the Ptpa? Or is Djokovic simply ahead of his time, fighting for fairness in a system that's resistant to change? One thing's for sure. This debate has reignited a critical conversation about who really runs tennis and who truly represents the players who make the sport what it is. You're watching Netrush Report, bringing you the stories that matter, the voices that challenge, and the moments that define the future of tennis. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's most electrifying sport. Until next time, stay sharp, stay passionate, and stay tuned.